Hello and welcome to Longship Gaming. It's that time of the year again, the time that comes 3 times a year, and that is a draft review for a new Star Wars Unlimited set. In this case, it is the first one of 2025, Jump to Lightspeed. So by way of introduction, this is a video about choosing your leaders and your commons and uncommons. I don't mention any rares, or at least don't focus on them. Any rares or legendaries, those are going to be your bombs. I'm talking about the leaders you're going to see, which ones I think are going to be the strongest, and which commons and uncommons you should take over a mediocre or poor or low value rare or legendary. So this is for draft. It's not for sealed. Sealed is a totally different consideration. I've done a lot of drafts at our local game store, face-to-face games, so thanks to them. It's always been best of 3, and the competition is extremely fierce in our area. The Toronto drafters and players are extremely strong, and that they just get stronger and stronger in their abilities from set to set. I'm not a professional at this. I'm just a motivated casual. Moving from Twilight of the Republic to this set, I did find that Twilight of the Republic was a much rougher set to draft. I was not as successful as I had been with previous ones. And to be quite honest, I didn't find it as, I have here good, but more so as enjoyable. I think that seems to be sort of the consensus. Coordinate and exploit, although you do get more use out of them in a draft environment, really didn't sort of feel as impactful as they probably could have. So just to go over some draft basics, I ascribe to the Baron methodology. So bombs, these are in order of cards you should be drafting. So bombs, usually your rares or legendaries, have a massive impact in the game when they come into play. Ambush, so cards that actually come out, have an impact by being able to play right away. Units that come out and can attack immediately into other units. Removal, your standard sort of straight or direct damage or sacrifice type outlet cards. Your opening cards, so basically your 1 and 2 cost cards in order to be able to play in the first turn. And nice to have. So everything else is left over from there. Could be good, could be bad, but are used generally to fill out your 33. Or sorry, your 30 cards. Well, it could be 33 now. Well, no, I don't think you can get to 33. There is a way to get to 40. But, well, you can play 33. You don't have to, you know how it is with the draft. Your minimum is 30. As usual, when you're drafting, be aware of the other drafted leaders in your pod to see who you might be competing with or what colors you're competing with. So have a look around the table. Limit your aspects during the leader draft. This is just my thing. I tend to either try and get all heroic or heroism or all villainy. And that really cuts down on what I need to consider during the draft and keeps me from having to pivot at the last second. And by last second, I mean no later than the middle of the first pack. So about 7 cards in, you should have a pretty good idea what your direction that you're going in is, and locking into that doesn't leave you in a position later on to have any real difficulty choosing the leader and the aspects that you want, or you think you'll be more successful with, I should say. Don't splash. As tempting as some cards may be and look very powerful, it is hardly ever worth it, and hasn't, I don't think, been worth it since set 1. Only the double aspect cards like Cunning, Vigilance, etc. Those were definitely worth splashing for the extra 2 resources, if you're in one of those resources already, because they were extremely powerful cards. So paying 6 instead of 4 was still, I think, viable for those cards themselves. But since then, splashing has just really been a bad idea. If you end up in colors that you can't use because of your draft, just hope that those will be resource outlets and you don't ever get stuck with them in hand. So my rating system, I know a lot of channels do the tier lists. Mine's a little different. It's a more streamlined 1, 2, and 3. So 1 are the very best, and the ones that you should be highlighting as your first picks. Playables, they are going to be the bulk of what you play, the leaders that you're most likely going to end up drafting and seeing, and the cards that you are going to fill out your deck with for the most part. And then 3, avoid them unless you have no other choice whatsoever. They are not technically bad cards, but they have low synergy or low effects when they come into the board. Or they could be just bad, at least in a draft environment. So we're going to start with our leaders. I'm going to do common leaders and then rare leaders. So first of our common leaders is Grand Admiral Thrawn. I give him a 2. He is a common after all. You're going to see him a lot. His effect seems very powerful. He comes out on 6. He's a 4/7, so he's got good stats to him. And his use that ability again when defeated can be very potent. But then I went and had a look through the number of cards that are in his colors in the common and uncommon slots. And they're not that numerous. There are some really good rare ones, but there are not a lot of commons and uncommons that have this ability. But 4/7, as I said, is great. He's Imperial tagged, which can be important, though not so much in this set. And I think the ability trigger is actually fair that you can do it once. So, or twice. You could technically do it twice on a turn, once on his activation, then on a slip, and then do it again. So I think he's going to be okay. I think he's going to be drafted a lot. I personally like him. I think he's going to be fantastic in Constructed and in Twin Suns. But here he's about middle of the pack. Rose Tico, she's also a 2, so she's her Vigilance Heroism, an action to heal 2 damage from a vehicle unit that attacked this phase. Comes down on 5, she's a 4/6, so it's pretty decent stats. On attack, you may heal 2 damage from a vehicle unit. I think that's also a pretty fair ability. This is a vehicle set, so her ability is quite relevant, especially if you're using her and the vehicles that you put into play, clearing the other side of the board and keeping yours healthy for the turn. I think that's going to be interesting. Well, I mean, again, you can do that at most twice on your turn, but I think in this set she's actually going to be pretty good. Not fantastic, but pretty good. Early focus on aggro and later on sentinel. So if you give something that outstats your opponent, hit them, heal them, and then later on with sentinels, you just keep your sentinels nice and fresh. And as I said, 4/6 on a flip of 5 is pretty good. Darth Vader, I'm giving him a 1. Comes out on 6. He's a 5/6, so stats are okay. And attached unit is a leader unit. And when deployed as an upgrade, create 2 TIE fighter tokens, and then he's a 5/5. I think that's extremely strong. He can turn whatever he's attached to into a real bruiser and difficult to remove from the board. And of course, if you attacked with a non-token vehicle unit this phase, create a TIE Fighter token. I think it's a token generator that matters in this case, and a swarm may now actually be viable. Just keep stacking up those TIE Fighters. I mean, that's it's on theme. It's what they do. Now, as opposed to battle droids, they don't have that utility that you could exploit, and there's no exploit in this set. But it is, I think they're going to be a little more relevant, even if it's just to pick away at things or provide tokens that you can put pilots onto to bump them up a little bit. I think having that ability to constantly pump out at least 1 TIE fighter every turn is going to be fairly solid. Would never use them as a leader unit, not with those stats. You definitely need something to make sure, the ideal situation is that on turn 4 you've played a a vehicle that's going to take some punishment, then you put him on it, and then you're off to the races. So I think he's going to be a hot commodity in most pools. And a lot of the green Imperial stuff is very good in this set. Wedge Antilles, giving a 2. Action, play a card from your hand using piloting. It costs 1 less. And then you can come out either as, of course, a unit or attached. With a repeatable next pilot card you play this phase costs 1 less, and he's a 3/4. Again, he's one of those I don't think you ever really necessarily want to put on the ground. He wants to be in a ship. And the play a card from your hand using piloting, it costs 1 less, can be pretty potent because there are some pretty cheap piloting cards. So on turn 1, you could quite conceivably play out a 2-cost ship and then put like R2 on it or something, bumping up its stats a little bit. So I think he's going to be solid. There are a lot of low-cost pilots available. Most of those don't really have any extra abilities. Yeah, I think he's a 2. He's not fantastic because his stat line is not the greatest. But as a common, I would expect him to be seen and played quite frequently in the set. So Luke Skywalker, giving him a 1, just like his father. As an action, if you attacked with a fighter unit this phase, deal 1 damage to a unit. There are lots of fighters, either in heroic or in aggression, or even ones in every color that he can quite easily use. And of course, it comes out on 6 as a 5/6. This upgrade can't be defeated by enemy card abilities, which is very strong. And then the attached leader is leader unit. If it's a fighter on attack, you may deal 3 damage to a unit. Very, very, very strong. He is going to be in such high demand, to say the least. So he's a 4 or 5 when he gets attached to something, and then dealing on attack, deal 3 damage to a unit. So he's hitting way above his weight class. So ping damage is very important, and it just gets stronger, of course, when he gets attached as a pilot. The fighter restriction is almost meaningless in this set. You are going to be able to draft fighters for him to go on. And almost guaranteed to get in a lot of damage over multiple turns. I think he's going to be very strong and in as much demand as his father. And I think the two leaders really play off each other. I think thematically it's very interesting in the design. Rio Durant. Okay, so I've given him a 3. I don't think he's that great. As an action and a cost of 1, attack with a space unit, it gets +1 and gains Saboteur for this attack. Okay, sure. As a epic action at 5, you can attach him as a 3/5, which is pretty good. Same stats as on the ground, and he's still a Saboteur. So he's one of the leaders that would be okay if you absolutely had to deploy him to the ground. But it has a restriction that he gains Saboteur, and if it's transport, also gets a +1. There are not that many transports at the common and uncommon level, so I don't really think that's what you should be eyeing. Plus, they tend to be a lot more costly. I think they start around 3 or so. I mean, if it works out that way, then fine. But this is not the kind of leader I would be trying to push at all. Poor stats overall. The +1 Saboteur may not be relevant. I mean, there are some good Sentinels in this set, but there's not an overwhelming number of them. So in a draft environment, I don't know if he's going to be that strong. Admiral Akbar, giving him a 2. Action 1, cost exhaust a non-leader unit. If you do, its controller creates an X-Wing. Then on turn 6, he's not a pilot, so he comes out on his own. On attack, you may exhaust a unit. If you do, its controller creates an X-Wing token. So, let's say you've got an extra unwanted unit, unused, not unwanted, but a unit that can't attack or doesn't necessarily want to attack. You just, like a Sentinel, you can just exhaust it over and over and just keep making X-Wing tokens for your side, or in an absolute pinch, to stop a lot of damage from coming at you, you can exhaust your potent opponent's unit, give them an X-Wing. But then again, you are staking the your survivability in the present for more pain in the future. So we'll see, right? He's versatile in that sense, but it really needs to have that extra unwanted low-cost maybe unit that you're not doing much with to be able to get him to basically fuel his X-Wing token generation. He's much better on the flip. 3/8's pretty good for 6. And X-Wing tokens, as we found with clones compared to droids in Twilight, are very good and very strong for 2/2 in space. Major Von Reg, or Von Reg, not sure which it is. I'm giving him a 1. As an action, play a vehicle unit from your hand, paying its cost. If you do, give another unit +1 for this phase. Well, this is a set all about vehicles. I see absolutely no problem with that extra little bump to damage. You're going to be playing vehicles all the time. On his flip side, he comes out at 4, so it's very early. He's a 3/3. So in a sense, like, you're never going to want to deploy him on the ground. Attached leader is a unit leader. It gains on attack. You may give another unit in this arena +1 for this phase. So you really, of course, got to focus on getting a lot of stuff out on the in the space arena. Super aggressive. Is he the Anakin of the set? I don't know. He's not going to hit as hard as Anakin, but I think he's going to be extremely popular. Pilot deploy on 4 is great and fast and synergizes well with all the cheap ties that you're more than likely going to be able to either play or generate. So now moving on to the rares, we have Asajj. So I've got her at a 2. So action, deal 1 damage to a friendly unit. If you do, deal 1 damage to an enemy unit in the same arena, which is an unfortunate sort of restriction. She's a 4/6. For 6 coming out, she always has grit, which is great. And then she also grants grit to what she's attached to. And on attack, you may deal 1 damage to a friendly unit. If you deal 1 damage to an enemy unit in the same arena. This makes her a lot stronger on her attack to ping herself, to up her ability to hit back harder. Mind you, you want to get more out of this by dealing damage to your opponent. Pinging is good, but self-harm may not be in this particular case, except for on herself. And grit is not that common in this set. So again, I think she's going to be pretty strong in Constructed or Twin Suns, but maybe not so much in Draft. So not too great stats on either mode, but her attachment as a pilot makes a lot more sense for her. That's the only time you're ever going to want to play her that way. Lando Calrissian, getting him a 3. As an action, a 1 cost and exhaust, play a unit from your hand, paying its cost. If you do and control a ground unit and a space unit, give a shield token to a unit. So at first that sounds good, and having sort of done some test games on Force Table, he's not always going to have both of those. It's very easy to kind of take out his ability by making sure you're keeping one of the arenas clear, and that's usually going to be the ground arena over the space arena. And the other big problem with him is it comes out on 7. So I don't know what they have against Lando in general, but this is another Lando card that just I don't think is really going to see a lot of play. It comes out too late, and the action is way too restrictive. However, when he does come out, he is a Sentinel, grants the ship he's attached to Sentinel, and then he may, when he's deployed, he may give a shield token to a unit in a different arena. So again, there's that restriction I don't like. There's too many restrictions on him. The cost of it, the caveat they have to have a ground unit and a space unit, and then the later caveat that when deployed as an upgrade, you give a shield token to a unit in a different arena. I don't think, again, that you can really count on that much in draft. I think that he's going to be very easy to manage when your opponent starts to just, okay, well, you've got something over here, I'll take that out, so we can't give shields to anything. So it's unfortunate. So The stats are fine. His deploy or 5. Well, no, not really. He's a sentinel, but he's a 5/7 sentinel at 7. So you're always going to want to be putting him on a unit. So hopefully you have one on the previous turn to put him out on, or even while he's sentinel. It's not so bad. But I really don't think he's particularly strong in this environment. Admiral Piet, I'm giving it a 2. I know a lot of people are really high on Piet. As an action, play a capital ship unit from your hand. It costs 1 less. And then each capital ship you play costs 2 less on his flip side, which is fine. There are some low-cost capital ships, but there aren't really enough of them. And do you really want to give up your early game for late game power? Like, I can see him getting absolutely blown out early in the game against a more aggressive leader, of which there are many, waiting for the time that you can actually be able to play some of your big answers. Flipping early on 5 is fine, but his stats aren't that strong. He's a 2/7 for 5. So you're going to want to, of course, be drafting a lot of capital ships. And again, there are not that many in-color capital ships in the draft environment to make, unless somehow you get lucky with that and they pass you a lot. I didn't want to put him as a 3 because I don't think he's utterly terrible. You don't have that unfortunate unfortunate option of either putting him on the ground or putting him on a ship, because he only ever goes on ground anyway. So you hope he survives long enough to give you some value, at least on the turn, on his flip turn. So you could get something relatively powerful out at 7 or so, but that just feels kind of late to me. But we'll see. I'm hoping he does better, but right now I'm putting him at a 2 because I'm not 100% sure. Admiral Holdo, I'm giving her a 2. As an action with a cost of 1, give a resistance unit or a unit with a resistance upgrade, which is an important distinction. On it, a +2/+2 for this phase, which is nothing to sneeze at. And then she flips on 6. She's a 3/8, so she's quite survivable. On attack, you may give another resistance unit or a unit with resistance upgrade on it, +2/+2 for this phase. Are there enough resistance cards? I mean, there are a few, and they're really good, but I don't know if there are enough of them that you're going to be drafting that is going to work for you. Because otherwise, she's completely dead in the water. She has no functionality other than her being a 3/8 on 6. So you really have to push resistance to be able to even consider playing her. And I really don't think there are enough. So I put her at a 2 for now. There is a chance she could go down to 3. I do want to try her out. I do want to see if I can push resistance. But I think that, again, good constructed or Twin Suns card, but not so great in draft. Captain Phasma, putting her at a 2. Action, exhaust. If you played a first order card this phase, deal 1 damage to a base, which is pretty significant. Comes out on 5. She's a 4/6, so it's about standard stats. On attack, if you played another first order card this phase, you may deal 1 damage to a unit. If you deal 1 damage to a base. I had looked through at the common and uncommon level. There are plenty of low-cost first order cards. More than I was surprised how many there actually were. And direct damage to a base is excellent. I mean, flipping on 5 is good, but is 4/6 good enough? I mean, she'll probably be able to get a couple of good shots in. But the important thing, of course, this is going to warp your draft, and you're going to want to pick up as many first order cards as possible. So again, there are low-cost ones. There aren't too many high-cost ones. So we'll see. That's why I gave her a 2. I'd like her to be higher, but I don't think she's 3 bad, but she's pretty much in the middle. Poe Dameron. So I'm giving him 1. Basically, action, cost of 1. Flip this leader and attach him to an upgrade as an upgrade to a friendly vehicle unit without a pilot on it, which gives that ship a 2/1. He can deploy on 5 as a 4/6 to the ground, but then he also still has that ability to attach this upgrade to a friendly vehicle without a pilot on it. Use this build only once each round, so he can hop all over the place. So I think he's got amazing value throughout the game. But is he as good as he seems? He seems really good. I mean, he is rare. You're not going to be seeing him too often in the draft. So having him pop to a ship, do what he needs to do. It's interesting. I just realized as Action 1, attach this upgrade to a friendly vehicle unit without a pilot on it. So it's not like he's not an upgrade at the time when he's a unit, so he can't just pop back again. But let's say you have a whole bunch of ships and enough resources enough readied ships and enough resources, you can just pop from ship to ship to ship to ship to ship. Of course, that's reactive because you're always giving your opponent a chance to do something, but he can just keep hopping from ship to ship if the ship has some kind of ability. Even better for you because you can get use out of all those on attack triggers. And of course, he can come out as a 4/6 at 5, do his thing, and then he'll end up getting taken out at some point. He'll go back, and you just start that same cycle throughout the game. And 1 cost is not so bad for that kind of versatility. So we'll see. The new mechanics are fun, but do they work? Now we have Admiral Trench. I think a leader that in draft absolutely does not work. So as an action, discard a card that costs 3 or more from your hand. If you do, draw a card. Okay, filtering is fine. And as an action, a 3-cost action, if you control 6 or more resources, deploy this leader. When deployed, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. An opponent discards 2 of them. Draw their one of the remaining cards and discard the other. So, there's some real gambles here. I feel he's also self-mill, and when you only have 30 cards in draft, I think that's pretty much suicide. Giving your opponent the option of which cards to discard. So, like when deployed, which you can do repeatedly, he's basically going to end up binning 3 cards every time he does it. And he's supposed to do it over and over and over again. I mean, this is not a card I am ever going to consider playing in draft. It is just dreadful. And having no may clause is an absolute disaster. If it said may do that, then fine. And his stats 4 or 5 for 6, which would make sense when you can do it over and over again, but it still costs to do it. I just don't see it. Unless every card that you are drawing is absolute value for you, as early as turn. All you have to do is turn 6 or turn 5 when he has 6 resources. You better hope that your opponent's not going to throw away what you want to play with. So again, don't play this game. Don't play this leader in draft. It is awful. Kazuda or Kaz. I get why he's popular, and I get why he's popular and constructed. He is not going to work in limited. Action, a friendly uses all abilities for this round. Take an extra action after this one. That's fine, but there are not that many cards in this set with negative effects. You would have to hope that in your pod, you're the only one even considering playing Kaz and just loading up on those cards that have negative effects. And there aren't that many in common and uncommon. So as much as you may want to be able to play an early AT carrier, that's a legendary, you're more than likely never going to see it. He seems fine in both forms. So he's a 2/5 coming out at 4. On attack, choose any number of friendly units, so you lose all abilities for this round. So let's say something negative has been put on your cards, although there's not a lot out there that does that in this set. That's a way around that, like in debt to the Golden Dawn, for example. Yeah, it's the same thing with his leader unit. I think he's better as a leader unit. But again, I really don't see, you're not, the Fireball, his ship is a great ship, but it is an uncommon, so you're not guaranteed to get that one either. And the other commons that have negative effects aren't that strong. And if you're filling up on those, you're not going to be very effective for the rest of the game. So I think better to avoid him in draft. So in summary, and this is for this first section before I dive into the commons and uncommons, there's almost equal numbers of must-play okay and bad leaders in this. I think it's good for the format, as there's unlikely to be any runaway best leader in Jump to Lightspeed like there was in Twilight of the Republic with Anakin. It became pretty clear as we went along with those drafts that Anakin, if you drafted him, you were likely always going to win. Or at least be favored to win. Not always win, but favored to win. Which made for a very sort of boring draft environment. So next we are going to move on to the commons and uncommons. So unlike previous videos I've done for other sets, I decided to cut out the rank 2 cards. So again, rank 1 are the ones that I would take over a mediocre or just bad or valueless rare or legendary. 2 are basically, they will be perfectly fine in all decks. There's not a lot of reasoning I need to go into for all those. Those are going to be the bulk of what you are going to be putting in your deck. And of course, I will, however, put the ones that are best to avoid as rank 3. So I'm just talking about rank 1s, must-takes, and rank 3s, try and avoid. Everything else, if I don't mention it, perfectly solid and workable card in the aspects that you are currently in. So for Vigilance, at the common and uncommon level, I've got the Chimera, Hera Syndulla, Red Squadron X-Wing, Landing Shuttle, and Trace Martez. So essentially the Chimera, a 5/6 for 6 space unit, capital ship, so remember that, you Piet fans. When played, you may use a when defeated ability on another friendly unit. So the idea is that you want to leverage that, say like, oh, I don't know, a landing shuttle over here. And then when defeated, it leaves a little something behind, leaves 2 TIE fighter tokens, which is nothing really to sneeze at. I think we have a Chimera that is very playable in this set, especially if you're going to go big. It's a good late game card, and again, there's that clause that you have to have another when defeated card out there, but I think it's going to be one of the more solid capital ships in this set. Hera, so Vigilance, Heroism, 2/3 on the battlefield as a restore 1 is pretty good. Piloting 2, you may play this as an upgrade. An attached unit gets restore 1 and has the exact same stats as she would have on the ground. She is good anywhere you put her. I'm really happy they did her some justice here. She's a solid unit, early game unit, all around. Player on turn 1, she's still going to do what she needs to do. Player on turn 2, if you have a ship out, even better. Red Squadron X-Wing, 3 cost. When played, you may deal 2 damage to this unit if you do draw a card. So you're seeing a little bit of a theme here. There's actually, I noticed a lot of card draw in this set, which is good because a lot of sets simply don't have that at all. Or attach it to an event or something like that. So 2 damage to this is nothing to sneeze at. And of course, it's a you may, and you don't have to do it, and you'll still have a 3/4 in space. Landing shuttle, a 2/4 for 3. When defeated, you draw a card. So works very well with the Chimera, and of course works spectacularly well with Mr. Thrawn. And just a really solid card with no drawback, really, once it leaves the battlefield. Trace Martez, she is a 2/5 for 3, which is okay stats on the ground, but piloting 1, attached unit gains on attack, you may heal 2 total damage from any number of units. Space or ground, doesn't matter. So, comes out very cheaply. She's a 1/2. She's basically just vigilance, can play for heroism or villainy. Extremely solid. Keeps your ships alive. Gives them a little boost. They can attack. If they're already damaged, or you have another ship that's damaged, it keeps them flying, basically. So under Poe or Luke, she's going to be your best friend if you're playing red-blue. In command, Kijimi Patrollers, Wingman Victor 2, Wingman Victor 3, Apology Accepted, and Blue Leader. Kijimi Patrollers, I mean, it's a 1/1 for 2, but it creates a TIE Fighter token. Never going to sneeze at. It was like it's a bit weak. You know, Batch Brothers was at 3. Yeah, makes it made it 2. Yeah, I mean it's a similar rate. It's pretty cheap. It's a good turn 1 play. Get 2 units out of it. I have no problem with that. And of course, then it's a tie. And on the next turn, you can attach a pilot to it. And perhaps the pilots you would like to attach to it would be Wingman Victor 2 or Wingman Victor 3. They're okay statted for the ground. So a 3/2 for 2 or a 4/3 for 3, but a piloting of 1, and 1 allows you to create another TIE Fighter token, gives +1/+1, piloting of 1, you may play this as an upgrade. Of course, when plays an upgrade, you may give an experience token to another unit. So I think Wingman is probably the stronger, Wingman Victor 2 is probably the stronger of the two, but a piloting cost of 1 is great. I would absolutely love turn 1, play Kijimi Patrollers. Turn 2, play both of these plus something else onto those ships and make another tie. Apology Accepted. I mean, this would be an amazing sequence, actually, when you think about it. Turn 1, Kijimi. Turn 2, Victor 2 on one of the ties. Victor 3 on the other tie, give one of them experience unit, creates another tie, sacrifice that tie, defeat it, give 2 experience tokens on a unit. So, I mean, I know these are all villainy, but this is quite the sequence. But in general, I do like this one, especially if something on those last legs, or you desperately need some kind of card draw. Oh, my shuttle's almost gone. I will blow it up and put 2 XP on another unit. Very solid to me. And of course, probably one of the strongest and most versatile cards in the entire set is Blue Leader. A 3/3 for 3 ambush, so that's great in space. When played, you may pay to, if you do, move this unit to the ground arena and give 2 experience tokens to it. It's now a ground unit. Just great stuff. It's great. The versatility is just out of this world, and it, of course, really helps as a fighter. And there's so many good heroism fighter upgrades that can be put on it. I'm never going to be sad to see this. The only problem is, of course, it has the uniqueness clause, so you can't have a bunch of them. But oh well. I mean, it would be broken otherwise. Continuing on, Command, I think, is very strong in the set. Leia, she's a 3/4 for 3, restore 1. Everybody loves restore. There's not a ton of it in this set. I mean, there's some, but not a ton. When played, you may attack with a pilot unit or a unit with a pilot on it. It gains +1 and gains restore 1 for this attack. So That's pretty good, especially if you're stuck with some pilots on the ground. She can still get them in for some from extra damage, and with additional restore 1 for that turn when they come in. I think is a pretty good rate. Continuing with our leaders, so we have red leader comes out on 4 for 3/4. It costs 1 less to play for each friendly pilot unit and upgrade. So if you're going hard into space and pilots, this can be pretty cheap, to say the least. Ideally, by maybe even on turn 1, you've got something piloted for really cheap. Next turn, you can play out a pretty solid unit. And when a pilot upgrade attaches to this unit, create an X-Wing token. Nothing to sneeze at, because that's really what you're going to be doing during this game. Adept Arc 170, another great fighter. Again, not and it's just generic command. Restore 2, amazing. Love arcs with restore. Love arcs with restore in a set in which you can put more pilots and make them last even longer than they did before. Dorsal turret, a 1 cost attachment. When this unit deals combat damage to a unit while attacking, defeat that unit. You need something much bigger than yourself, like a capital ship. Absolutely dead. Well, this is the way to do it. A big sentinel in a way. This is the way to do it, and it's only a 1 cost. Basically turning the vehicle into Rook. Dogfight. Attack with a unit, even if it's exhausted. That unit can't attack bases for this attack. I think it's amazing. Let's say that you've got Luke, who's already been on a ship and already attacked. He can be doing a significant amount of damage every time he attacks. Well, here he comes again. But this time, shoot, basically allowing your fighter to do some damage to a base and then do some damage in space, or do a lot of damage in space. I think it's sort of an excellent 2-for-1 in the end. Especially if you got something on it like dorsal turret and you put it on something really cheap. And just smash into things and blow them up at a pretty good rate. And then salvage, play a vehicle unit from your discard pile, then deal 1 damage to it. I mean, in a set in which vehicles are going to be your bread and butter, this is definitely the kind of card I'm looking to get if I'm in command. 0 cost. Sure, it does that 1 damage, but I don't really care when I've got something I can pull things back out of my discard pile. So card advantage is a real thing, and it's a rare thing to have a card like that basically has, as they say in Magic, graveyard synergies. So rank 1 for aggression, commons and uncommons, we have General Hux, Frisk, Red Squadron Y-Wing, Biggs Darklighter, and Rebellious Hammerhead. So I have the German one, the Rebelli. I'm not gonna do that. That's awful. So General Hux, 2 cost 1/4. Each other First Order unit gains Raid 1, and there are a good number of First Order cards in common and uncommon. But as an action, if you played a First Order card this phase, draw a card. I'm really liking that particular clause on him. Card draw is king, along with ways to restore your base. So restore is excellent, but card draw on something relatively cheap is pretty good. So I'm liking what General Hux is presenting. Frisk, a 3/2 for 2, but comes out as a pilot for 2. You may play this as an upgrade. I don't know why I'm reading that over and over again, because that's what piloting does. When plays an upgrade, you may defeat an upgrade that costs 2 or less. So, in a Frisk mirror match, he's basically defeating the other Frisk, and a 2/2 rate on a ship is pretty good. Red Squadron Y-Wing, a 1/3 for 2 on attack, deal 3 indirect damage to the defending player. Our first indirect damage card on this list. It's going to get a lot of work in over the course of the game. It's a 1/3, which is very solid, comes out on turn 1. On turn 2, you can put a pilot on it and make it even stronger and give it a little more life. So, for example, Biggs. So Biggs, a 3/4 for 3, which is an okay rate. A 2/1, but coming a piloting for 1, depending on the kind of vehicle he's attached to. Fighter, overwhelm, transport, +1 health or hit points. Speeder gains grit. So good modular mode here, low cost. Would be great to put on something like a Red Squadron White Wing and keep it alive, up its damage potential, overwhelm if necessary. I think pretty strong pilot attachment. And then the Rebellious Hammerhead, a 5/7 in space for 6. I believe this one, and I just lost my, I think this one just does damage depending on the amount of damage done to other units. I'm going to give this a quick look up. Okay, so you do damage equal to the number of cards in your hand. So if you're playing a big unit like this, you're probably have already played a card out. I mean, at minimum, you're probably doing 2. There's not a lot of hand hate in this set, if any. So I think, anything that comes in has immediate impact on the board like that by doing damage is a card I'm always going to highly favor. And 6 is not so bad. It's late game, but it certainly is not too far out of the range where you wouldn't be able to play it in a game like this. I think if this environment is as fast as other ones, you're probably done by turn 6 or so. Captain Tarkin, a 2/5 for 3 Republic official. Interesting. Each friendly vehicle gets +1 and gains overwhelm. So in a vehicle-centered set, he's going to be amazing. Just juicing up all of your vehicles. And speaking of juiced up vehicles, we've got your War Juggernaut. This thing is absolutely obnoxious. I know that a lot of people are seeing this, especially in Constructed, as perhaps a mistake. But it is kind of ridiculously strong, to say the least. A 3/7 for 6. This unit gets +1 for each damaged unit. When played, deal 1 damage to each of any number of units. Doesn't matter the arena. Can be yours, can be your opponent's. This thing is insane. And I can see why in Constructed. This thing is going to be a menace. It is going to be a staple in Twin Suns. It's going to go into every single aggression deck for sure. Luckily, I guess it's at the uncommon level in draft, but I see this thing, I'm windmill slamming that for sure. System Shock, a 1-cost event. Defeat a non-leader upgrade attached to a unit. If you do, deal 1 damage to that unit. As we've seen, there are some extremely potent pilots out there. This is just a good way to get rid of your big dark lighters, or your sentinels, or whatever else that you might want to pop off of any kind of pilot that actually gives any really great abilities. And that 1 damage is pretty good, because then that could tip the balance and even blowing up a ship. So I think it's pretty good, to say the least. And at the common slot, there's going to be a lot of that going on. Shoot down, deal 3 damage to a space unit. If that unit is defeated this way, you may deal 2 damage to a base. 3 damage for 2 is not a terrible rate, especially when targeting space units, which don't always tend to have the greatest amount of hit points. But the added little bonus of dealing 2 damage to a base is excellent. And it's a common. So you're going to be seeing a lot of that as well. And stay on target, attack with a vehicle unit. It gets +2 and gains when this unit deals damage to a base, draw a card. Again, card draw is king, and this little enabler here is certainly a way to do it, especially to close out games. For Cunning for rank 1, we've got Rafa Martez. A 3/3 for 3, not a pilot. When played or on attack, deal 1 damage to a friendly unit and ready a resource. Wow. I will never turn down extra resources, and of course she is just in cunning. No second aspect. I think she's going to be played in. I mean, I can see that being maybe a staple even going forward. Doing 1 damage to a friendly unit is not a big deal, but it's readying a resource is so very important. Kimagila Heavy Fighter, a 3/4 for 4. When played, deal 3 indirect damage to a player. Exhaust each unit damage this way. That's the kind of card that, well, in Constructed, that Django is going to absolutely love. It just enables him even more. It's indirect damage, so your opponent gets to control that, but 3 damage on a base or exhausting units, I have absolutely no problem with any of that. And the Razor Crest, a 3/5 for 4. When a pile attaches to this unit, you may return a non-leader unit that costs 2 or less, or an exhausted non-leader unit that costs 4 or less to its owner's hand, which is pretty good. Bounce is very powerful. In Villainy Heroism, I've only got these 2. The TIE Bomber, a 0/4 for 2. On attack, deal 3 indirect damage to a defending player. So it's basically like a Y-wing. It just doesn't do the upfront. It has no power to do any damage. But this is an excellent target for any early pilots. They give it just a little bit of a little more juice, and of course help out its longevity. So you can get this thing up to pretty high hit points and becomes a significant threat throughout the game. And it's a common too, so I expect to see swarms of TIE bombers throughout the length of the draft environment. And for heroism, R2-D2, amazingly versatile, a 1/4 for 1 on the ground, nothing to sneeze at there, but a piloting of 0. This upgrade can be upgraded and played on a friendly vehicle with a pilot already on it. Attach unit gains you may play or deploy an additional pilot. So basically a 0 cost 1/1 that you can pop on a ship and on turn 1, and then the next turn put another pilot on it. Unbelievable. He is uncommon, but wow, I think he's going to be a lot of fun going forward. So now we're down to Vigilance in rank. We're down to the rank 3 stuff. So there aren't a lot of these ones. So I have Desperate Commando, Royal Security Fighter, and Grim Valor. Desperate Commando, unless you are playing with Thrawn, when defeated, you may give a unit -1/-1 for this phase. This is not going to make that much of a difference. It's a 2 for 2/2, or for a 2/2 for 2. It might help you out by taking out a TIE fighter or something when it's defeated, but yeah, I don't think that in limited it's going to be very good, because you really need Thrawn to be able to get a lot of use out of it. It can just fizzle. Royal Security Fire, a 2/2 for 2 with grit, is almost entirely useless. Mind you, can get a pilot on it, but it's not one of the better ships out there anyway. I reserve the right to be wrong about this. It could be a scrappy little thing for early game, who knows? But we will have to see. Grim Valor, a 1 cost upgrade. Attach unit gains when defeated. You may exhaust a unit. Exhaust abilities never really do much in this game. I'm not too keen on this card. Again, I don't think these, when I say these are rank 3, I don't think they are absolutely dreadful and utterly unplayable. I'm just saying I will be avoiding playing this game in general. It's not a very good rate. So command, I only have 1 in here as Bunker Defender, a 2/1 for 1. While you control a vehicle unit, this gains Sentinel. Otherwise, the thing is going to be pretty much useless. At least in draft. In aggression, I only have one card I think that should be avoided. Koi Grand Turn, ready a fighter or transport unit with 6 or less power. We've had cards like this before in other environments. It's very highly costed. Not one that I'm looking to draft or even put in the decks. Once in a blue moon, you might actually get some use out of this, but it's restricted to fighter or transport, so you can't really use it on any of your big capital ships. Yeah, not one that I'm looking to include in the deck. Cunning, the Blade Squadron B-Wing, a 3/3 for 3. When played, if another player controls 3 or more exhausted units, give a shield token to this unit. I don't like that if clause. I think it's too restricted. 3 or more, 2 may have been fair, but 3 is just asking a little too much. Villainy and generic, Solsted Spacer, a really plain Jane 1/1 for 1, and piloting 1 to add +1/+1. Something's gone wrong if you're having to draft this and play it. Swarming Vulture Droid, yes, I know you can have up to 15 of this card. Yes, I know it's in the common slot. Maybe somebody wants to try and go crazy by doing nothing but drafting Swarming Vulture Droids. But yeah, it's a fun little gimmick, but it's still just a 2/2 for 2. They're kind of fragile. You'd be lucky to keep these on the board. If I, as your opponent, see what you're trying to do, I'm constantly shooting down or trying to get rid of Vulture Droids so they don't get that bonus. And then you're kind of, it restricts you from being able to play other better ships at those point values. An evasive maneuver, a 2-cost exhausted unit. These cards are never good, and in this case, this one is one of the worst. So I would never touch this one. Okay, so as you can see, though, it's a really solid draft set with very few truly bad cards. Look how few I had in the 3 category that I would actively try and avoid. In going through all the cards in the set, and as I said, I didn't go over all the 2s because they have utility. They're all good within the context, and just they will form the bulk of what you are playing in your deck, but they're not necessarily really standouts that you would take over a rare or a legendary. So let me know in the comments if you would prefer to have all my rank 2s talked about, but I think when you look through the set, you can see pretty clearly the ones that are just your bread and butter, putting the deck together, maybe being synergistic, maybe not, but the ones that you are going to play. So again, very few truly bad cards. And even then, as I said, it's really close. I really had to struggle to find those cards that I thought were quote-unquote bad. Command seems strongest, both in Villainy and in Heroism. Just amazing cards. Like, this is we had a lot of really good aggression cards in the last set in that environment, but this is just great. I like Command having this amount of real sort of flavorful cards that just seem to overall outclass a lot of the other ones. So I think green is going to be a hot aspect this time around. I think it's a potentially slower environment because of the increased draft complexity when it comes to how you're balancing out how many ships you're taking, how many pilots you're taking, how many non-pilots you're taking, for that matter, what kinds of ships that you're going to be taking. If you're drafting, if you want to play Luke, you're drafting a lot of fighters, and you have to choose, okay, which one of these fighters are really good? What are you going to? And if it's not a fighter, what are you going to work with outside of that? If it's transport or something, yeah, I think it will slow down a bit, and it will be a little more complex when you're drafting. But as always, please let me know what you think in the comments below. I look forward to drafting this set. I look forward to the next, well, 4 months until the next one. Probably about 3 months I'll draft it. I think it's about the time that I usually burn out. But I hope this will carry my interest a little longer than Twilight did. I think it really will. I think this is a very fun environment with a lot of choices. Indirect damage, for example, is going to be a lot of thought will have to be given to how you're spreading that damage around. Yeah, so that's about it. So thank you very much for watching, and until next time, happy gaming and good luck at your draft. Let me know how you did. Thank you so much for watching Longship Gaming. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It will really help the channel to grow and improve. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when more Longship Gaming content goes live. Until next time, happy gaming.